Hey guys, Ryan Martian here, and today I'm going to be discussing what might be my favorite cinematic framing shot in the history of film, along with the scenes leading up to it, as they are important to both the story and the characters, and therefore pertain to setting up and resolving this particular shot. It'll take probably more than a few minutes, but I promise I will get to it eventually. I've always called it the long walk of complete failure shot, and it's from my personal favorite film of all time, the brilliant Fargo by the inimitable Coen Brothers and their longtime cinematographer, Roger Deakins. When I think of a Coen Brothers film, Mr. Deakins always immediately comes to my mind. While the Coens have worked with other talented cinematographers during their career, with their own unique visual voices, Barry Sonnenfeld in their earliest films, and Bruno Delbonnel for Inside Llewyn Davis, a Coen Brothers film just doesn't feel, for lack of a better term, like a Coen Brothers film without Roger Deakins as the director of photography. He's basically the bread that sandwiches together their writing and directing and makes it a complete meal. Great cinematic shots are something to savor, and they beg the viewer to press pause to take it all in slowly, because even the simplest of them are so dense, you might miss how much attention was put into that particular shot. Talented cinematographers are obviously aware of this, even though their work unfortunately goes unheralded most of the time. It's art in its purest and oldest form because it makes us stop in our tracks and just look. As always, there are major spoilers ahead, but I wanted to give you guys a fair warning. You have been warned. The scenes leading up to the shot revolve around the loathsome and pathetic Jerry Lundegaard, perfectly portrayed by William H. Macy in what is arguably the greatest screen performance of his career. From what I've read, Macy basically begged the Coen Brothers for this role and wouldn't relent until they finally gave it to him after many video and in-person auditions. His portrayal of the character and his actions are essential to this shot, so I will be discussing both. Jerry gets a call from his father-in-law Wade about a parking lot investment which Jerry pitched to him earlier in the film. Initially, Wade wasn't interested at all and brushes it off as just another dumb scheme from Jerry. After running it by his advisor, Stan Grossman, he tells Jerry that it actually sounds like a good deal. Now, at the beginning of this conversation, Jerry has his usual moody and defeated look on his face, and only faintly attempts the customary Minnesota nice. Once he hears Wade is interested, the look on his face and his demeanor do a complete 180. He thinks he has finally solved all of his money problems and is anxious to get the deal done as quickly as possible because, let us not forget, his kidnapping plan, and I use that term very lightly, hasn't gone through yet. We next see Jerry walking through the garage of the dealership he works at and approaches the man, Shep Proudfoot, who got him in touch with the kidnappers because he now wants to call it all off. Now Shep responds that he only vouched for Grimsrud, Peter Stormare's silent and only speaks when it is necessary character, as opposed to Steve Buscemi's Carl Showalter, who will never shut up and actually causes pretty much every problem in regards to the actual kidnapping. Shep repeats the sentiment several times, and Jerry just shrugs him off. I point this out because it is very important to both the plot and Jerry's absolute naivete. At the beginning of the film, we didn't know that he was only supposed to meet Grimsrud. We just assumed Jerry was going to meet up with two people to negotiate the kidnapping, and Carl is actually the person Jerry speaks to at length. Now, I can't speak for everyone else in the world, but if I was supposed to meet only one person for the negotiation of a kidnapping, and there were two, at least one red flag would have gone up in my mind. I sometimes imagine what the film would have been like if Carl was never introduced. It probably would have been pretty boring. This was a very clever and subtle storytelling technique used by the Coen Brothers, and I definitely missed its significance in my younger years. Just like Jerry casually shrugged off Shep's statement about vouching only for Grimsrud, he immediately gives up when Shep tells him he has no other way of getting in contact with the kidnappers. For a split second before this, we almost believed Jerry might actually care about his wife and her well-being. But his complete lack of insistence and his physical reaction, clapping his hands and snapping his fingers like it's just another day in the garage, once again reinforces his total lack of empathy. This is the beginning of the downfall of Jerry's character, and the consequences of his idiotic decisions are already in motion and cannot be stopped, no matter how little he tries. A few scenes later, we see Jerry in his office and he gets a call from Riley Diefenbach from GMAC Financing. I could go on forever just about the names of the characters in this film, but I'll leave it at that. Jerry responds with some over-the-top Minnesota nice because he knows what this conversation will be about. During this brief exchange, we learn that Jerry has been taking out fraudulent loans on cars that, surprise, don't actually exist, to the tune of $320,000. During the middle of the conversation, when he realizes that he might actually have to face the consequences, his face turns into one of fear, and he asks Riley, "Just how much were those loans again?" Riley, fairly bluntly, reminds him of the amount, and this reinforces to the audience just how obsessed Jerry is with trying to win over someone in the most idiotic and naive ways, just for some easy money. Once again, his face says it all. I have to quickly point out that William H. Macy completely owned this role, especially with his facial expressions. It's a very overlooked aspect of a great acting performance, and it shows just how much he was invested in the character. Jerry has one more trick up his sleeve, but as we will see in the next scene, his father-in-law is neither an idiot nor naive, at least when it comes to practical business. After the kidnapping scene, we see Jerry enter Wade's office with a huge grin on his face and greets both Wade and Stan with cockeyed optimism. His Minnesota nice is off the charts at this point. Stan tells Jerry that the deal looks pretty sweet, while Wade, being the elder and restrained businessman Jerry could only dream of, says, "It's doable." It's important to note that the windows in Wade's office behind Jerry are projecting the gray sky onto him, and it shows that wherever he goes and whatever Jerry gets his hands on, impending doom is following him very close behind. This serves two very important foreshadowing purposes. The shot, which is what inspired this analysis, and I will finally get to in a few moments, but also Wade's impending doom. Here they are discussing a deal about a parking lot, and later in the film, Wade meets his maker in a parking lot. Wade finally asks Jerry, "What kind of finder's fee you looking for?" Jerry almost seems flabbergasted by this question, and while retaining his Minnesota nice facial expression, he simply asks, "Huh?" After a few back and forths, with Jerry promising he'll pay back the principal and heck, go one over prime, it becomes apparent to Jerry that Wade is not going to simply give him $750,000. I want to point out that the Coens used some great comedic beats during this pretty serious exchange, not only implementing the trademark repeated dialogue device with, "We're not a bank, Jerry," but also when Wade suggests that Jerry should go to Midwest Federal, talk to old Bill Deal. Stan informs Wade that Bill is at another bank now, and they almost get into an argument about this pretty irrelevant point. This is a perfect example of how realistic and important every single line of dialogue is in a Coen Brothers film. If this film was directed by almost anyone else, they probably would have looked at the writer and said, "Why are these two characters about to get into an argument with each other right now? It doesn't make any sense. It's a throwaway line. Get rid of it." The exchange makes me laugh every time, and we needed these short comedic beats because Wade is going to move on with the deal without Jerry, because $75,000 is apparently just not enough for him. We see one last shot of Jerry's face, and it seems like everything is finally sinking in. Now on to the shot. Before I get into the specifics, it's important to note that the Coen Brothers frequently use soft crossfades in their films. It's a very useful device most of the time, but they opted here for a hard cut because they knew that it would be more appropriate in this particular case, especially when you have Roger Deakins working the cinematography. It hits you in the face, and like I mentioned earlier, begs you to hit the pause button and take it all in. Here it is, and enjoy a few well-deserved moments of silence. Guys, this is composition. This shot could be hanging in a museum somewhere. This is high art, and it's all courtesy of Roger Deakins' minimalistic approach to his craft. If you are familiar with his work, he loves to shoot the natural environment pretty much as it is. It might not look like much, but there is so much going on, and everything is right there staring back at us. We have the white snow along with the black light posts and plant holders, starkly contrasting each other, implying their respective yin and yang on the color scheme. We have the bleak environment, including the plants without any leaves, engulfing and surrounding Jerry, reinforcing how empty and dead of a person he is inside. It looks like a one-man funeral procession. He takes up such a small part of the frame, also reinforcing how insignificant and little of a human being he is to the rest of the world around him. We also have the camera acting as a device of sorts, as if we are looking directly down at Jerry from on high with our own eyes. He is literally and metaphorically lower than the audience. If you look closely, you'll notice the tire marks in the snow form a crossroad of sorts. While walking back to his car, he uses the same path, and even reuses the same footprints he earlier put in the snow that got him to this point, instead of veering to the side. He doesn't, and probably even cannot, walk outside of the lines he created himself. His path has been set in stone for quite some time now. All of the above is accomplished with a single static shot within the span of 18 seconds. Bravo, Mr. Deakins. Bravo. Now, I was going to end the video here, but I felt the need to continue for a bit. While writing this analysis, I accidentally realized I was also analyzing the downfall of Jerry Lundegaard at the same time. So bear with me for a few more moments. Carter Burwell's score fades in, and we now see Jerry sitting in his car from behind him. He sits in the seat of his car for a few moments, and then realizes that he cannot leave until he scrapes the ice off the windshield. The ice is a perfect visual metaphor for how clouded his vision of the future is, and always has been since the start of the film, even though we, as the audience, could see his failures from a mile away. He takes a few deep breaths, picks up his ice scraper, and leaves the car. We cut to Jerry outside of his car from a side shot about to scrape the ice off the windshield, and he once again has the moody and defeated look on his face that I mentioned at the beginning of the review. He has come full circle, and in a very short time span. He starts to scrape the ice, and he quickly becomes more and more animated and agitated by his failures. In a fit of rage, he completely loses it and slams the ice scraper into the windshield, and it sails off into the distance. Now, most directors would have ended the scene right here, because everything plot-wise has been accomplished. However, the Coen Brothers wisely kept the camera rolling, because Jerry still has to scrape the rest of the ice off the windshield. It's winter in Minnesota, and this is a part of Jerry's life that cannot be avoided. He picks up the scraper and goes right back at it. This once again shows how acutely aware the Coens are to the small details, and I eat this stuff up. We cut to one last shot, again from the distance, of Jerry scraping the ice to reinforce his insignificance one final time. Guys, I hope you are enjoying these analyses, and I had a lot of fun with this particular one. I got to discuss not only my favorite film of all time, but my favorite cinematic shot as well. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit that like button, and thanks again for watching.